Infatuation of... Okay, fine. We were a bunch of super dorks with no friends. We spent all day hiding out in our rooms, reading books that were maybe a little inappropriate, okay?
Hello and welcome everyone to Who Let Me Read This, the podcast where a group of lady human beings, I think we can agree on that term, review the sometimes terrible books of our young adulthood lives, the 80s and 90s, depending on our age here. Michelle will never admit it. And why on earth we were allowed to read these books. So welcome, ladies. Welcome back. Today we are continuing our review of My Sweet Audrina by V.C. Andrews. Woo-wee. So it took us our first couple episodes just to get through the basics of the plot.
Oh, God.
Holy cow, there's a lot going on in here.
It's densely written.
Absolutely.
Except for that 100 pages.
Except for the 100 pages that are super boring.
That you can
she
have
learns
Pacing issues.
The stock market.
So now we really get to dive into some of our favorite parts of the book. So let's just go on down the line. And if you ladies want to go ahead and introduce yourselves and then dive on in, today we're going to be covering our real what the fuck moments from this book. I mean, it's a whole what the fuck book.
It really is.
It really is, yeah.
But there are some just real shiners that are extra special. Michelle, are you indicating that you do not want to start and you
No,
prefer
I
from
do.
this?
I do.
You're super excited for this.
That was her, like, I'm ready.
I'm Michelle White. Very beginning, Mandy suggested it. I started reading it, and the very beginning they described the dad, who to me sounds amazing. And I immediately messaged Mandy and said, I want to do it with the dad. And she said, oh, that'll change. But guess what? It didn't.
I mean, to be fair, in Michelle's defense, I feel like Damien must have a magic dick.
Oh, yeah.
Because every woman in this book goes for it.
Wants
And
to be
he
on it,
is
yeah.
straight up human garbage.
The
So
way they
there's gotta be
describe
something.
him, though, is so hot.
He does sound like a daddy.
So what is it about the description, Michelle, that is so attractive? What are some of the choice words that VC uses?
His fashion sense, he's very concerned about his fashion sense. His
Yeah.
slick back hair, he's a little bit mean.
A little?
A little.
He's the boss. I don't know.
He's got thick toenails.
That part I blocked out.
toenails.
They mention his toenails so many times.
So many. Like at least 3 or 4 times, which I would argue any mention of a character's toenails, especially like with regard to their thickness specifically, is a choice?
Yeah.
So to speak.
Am I like remembering this correctly that there is something about like other people grooming his toenails for him?
Shaving, he does make everybody watch him shave.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't remember anything about the toenails other than how thick they were.
So thick.
Should I read Papa's description?
You should.
Should. Okay.
My papa, 6'5" and weighing well over 200 pounds, was the tallest man I had ever seen, though Vera was always telling me there were many men who were taller.
He's the only
Especially basketball players. Papa's hair was the darkest black, looking blue sometimes in the sunlight. He had beautiful almond-shaped eyes, so brown they appeared black, and his lashes were so long and thick they appeared false, even though they weren't. He had smooth, soft skin that often appeared ruddy in winters and richly bronze in the summers. I mean,
He does sound real hot.
And they talk about how well he dresses, and his attitude I appreciate, which says more about me and less about him. But
I mean, I get it. I've dated some attractive, well-dressed pieces of garbage.
Yeah.
We talked about that last night, actually.
sure did.
Not current. Oh, I should clarify that. Sorry, honey. Not current.
asterisk. Asked.
Ugh. Oh,
So I guess that was one of my what the fucks. More about myself, though. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
So you discovered something about yourself that really made you...
Several times during this book I discovered things about myself. I think it was more self-exploratory for me than it was what the fuck, because I didn't find things that strange, and then everyone else was like, that was fucked up, and I was like, oh, yeah, it was fucked up. That never happened to me.
Nice. Awesome. Sarah, do you want to share yours? All right. Buckle up.
I don't even know where to start. Renfield? Lamar. Renfield, Dracula, I don't know. Lamar Rensdale,
The piano teacher.
the piano teacher, is described as being so hairy.
Which, can we pause for a moment? And both Damien and Lamar, I feel like we hear a lot about how Audrina, they're so tall and so hairy. What is your frame of reference, sweetheart? You don't leave the house. How do you...
Yeah.
What? It's a lot.
Also kind of how I felt when she was describing the sex in any of the passages where she's talking about
very
sex.
hairy.
How would you even know what it was?
V.C. Andrews died a virgin.
How old was she when she was horribly injured and then had to depend on her mother for everything?
A teenager, and she was born in the late 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like she probably did.
Bummer.
That
Yeah.
opens up a whole other passage. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe she had some sort of horrible, sexual
Experience?
trauma
Yeah.
in her,
seems like it.
past. Because
Well,
she her books have a lot of that.
Yeah, and I feel like Vera is really a window into V.C. Andrews' soul, in so much as we hear a lot about how Vera learns about things, like playing with anatomical books. And
Yes, you're right.
the isolation of the characters. I'm just like, oh, girl, you were working through some things, weren't you?
Interesting.
So
The hairiness.
So hairy.
Yeah.
So hairy. So I have a few passages that I have screenshotted from the Kindle book.
Never mind us.
One is Vera describing Lamar, and then one is Audrina describing Lamar. So Vera's description of Lamar: I have seen a naked man, Audrina, a real one, not just a picture or an illustration.
Yeah.
He is so hairy. You'd never suspect just how hairy by looking at him fully clothed. His hair travels from his chest down past his navel and runs into a point and keeps on going and getting bushier until... Stop, I don't want to hear anymore. So, which is directly before 9 Inches stabbing. I'm just saying. Should I continue?
Keep going.
Because we are going to talk about 9 Inches stabbing, I believe, at some point.
I'm going to name
I'm
a
sure.
band 9 Inches stabbing.
Right. And so Vera continues, but I want you to hear more. I want you to know what you're missing. It's wonderful to have all those 9 inches stabbing into me. Did you hear me, Audrina? I measured it. Almost 9 inches, and it's all swollen and hard. So,
She wants her to be so jealous. Vera wants Audrina to be jealous of her.
yeah, I
So
think she
badly.
wants her
Yeah.
to be jealous and also terrified. And it works. The terrified part.
Yeah.
And also, can I pause for just a little
Absolutely.
second? It's also considering what Vera did and her culpability in her rape. She's trying to re-traumatize her too.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
This is it's sexual abuse.
I mean, I love Vera, but she is awful.
Yeah.
I would posit that Vera has her own sexual trauma that is definitely tied into the ways that she acts out. But
May I just add that it would be a fantastic name for a 90s industrial cover band is 9 Inch Stabbing Westward.
yeah,
And you exclusively cover 9 Inch Nails and Stabbing Westward songs. TM. I'm doing it. I gotta go, guys. I have things to do.
Life plans.
So then Audrina's descriptions about him being hairy. One day he had his sports shirt open at the throat and his chest was very hairy, just as she'd said. She had described his naked body to me in such detail, it was almost as if he wore transparent clothes. I couldn't look his way. And then later, when she sees Vera and Lamar getting busy, having rough sex, which, how did you not break all your bones? Sorry, where is it? Okay. Petrified, as if 7 years old and trapped in the rocking chair again, I watched until their violent sexual act was over and Vera was lying naked on top of his long, very hairy body. So,
Is this man the wolf man? Like, what is happening?
which also leads me to believe that maybe VC Andrews was a virgin.
I thought that they just thought he really wasn't that extra hairy. It's just that they had never seen it. So it was normal hairy, but it seemed extra.
Well, and that's what I was thinking. Like, if I had read this when I was a little kid, what would I think that hairy meant?
Yeah.
You know, like, how hairy would I think Harry was?
Yeah.
Because that's very different than, like, me now being like, oh,
Whoa,
he's
look at that
really
guy's
hairy. Yes. Now, like, oh, that guy's really hairy is like...
Wolfman.
Yeah.
But as a child, it would have been just chest hair.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm more likely to think a man is very hairy if his, like, beard starts up by his cheekbone. Like,
Got
up
them
by
Gandalf
his eyes.
eyebrows.
Yeah.
Or, like, has, like, money eyebrows. But, like, if your chest hair's touching your collarbone, like, that's cool. I'm into it.
I'm certain.
Like, hairy is not...
No, I actually find it gross if you don't have chest hair. It's kind of weird to me. Like, you have too many feminine hormones.
Well, let me blow your mind right now. I'm fairly certain their only frame of reference was Damien, and he seems like the type to manscape.
I bet he waxes. I bet
Yeah,
Damien
100%.
waxes.
Or, like, I mean, she's looking at, like, anatomical books, which obviously they're going to be, like, smooth, hairless bodies.
Yeah, like, their frame of reference is, like, pictures of mannequins, basically. That's kind of what a medical
And
book looks
paper
like, right?
dolls.
And paper dolls, yes, the paper dolls.
What
I
happened to all the
forgot.
boys, Audrina? What happened to all the boys?
Yes.
And I'll admit, I was pretty shocked the first time I was with a dude with like an extraordinary amount of chest hair because I don't know, maybe because I came from a small town with lots of chemical plants. We're just not very hairy people in Nakusa, Wisconsin.
We're also a little green, you know.
or an arm, whatever. It was not like unpleasant, but the next day when he left my house, like I looked in my bed and I was like, no, there's hair. Oh, this is weird. And that was just sorry to that guy. Whoever. You know where you are. You keep following me on social media.
Leaving a trail of hair wherever he goes.
Going off of the hairy thing. So you know, you guys all know, like, Nick was in surgery last March, and he had to get, like, shaved for it. And so, like, I came and okay.
Nick is her husband.
My husband, went through, like, 4 of the 5 stages of septic shock with his stomach. He's fine now. And it's fine. He had a perfect hair bikini.
Thanks. Now I'm picturing him as Lamar.
I love you so much, Nick. I'm sorry.
We all see him pretty often. This is going to be a delightful moment the next time we interact.
You can edit this out.
Also, he is a ginger, so it was like a red hair bikini, wasn't it?
Oh no.
It was a tasteful copper bikini.
But how does he feel about piano?
Also, I don't remember off the top of my head what the like national average penis size is, but I feel like it's smaller than 9 inches.
It's like
Does-
5
also
and a
like
half.
they're like teenage girls. I'm
Does she
sorry.
have
I'm telling you,
ruler.
my ex-husband did a lot of research about penises because he was very proud of his. And so, I know, eye roll.
5.1 inches.
What did I just say?
Exactly.
Thank you. Our amazing
And he would
producer has
go
just
on
showed
and
it's
on about how
5.1
large his
inches.
penis was. Guess what?
I'm calling
Your
bullshit
soul
on this,
sucks.
Vera. You did not measure. Also, like you are a young teenager, and that's
Listen, with her flair for drama, I'm 1000% picturing Vera like busting out of her bag a tape measure to be like, I must know. So I can taunt my sister cousin with it.
There's feathers on the tape measure.
you're gonna like it.
I don't know, but
So
also,
Harry.
would that not make things shrivel? I'm sorry. That's got to be terrifying to come at you. Come here.
See, I pictured it more as he asked her to do it, like, because
This is
let's
true.
see how
He
big it
is
Come on
a
over.
full-on
Give me that
pedophile,
ruler
so
over
it's
there.
fine.
Oh.
Speaking from personal experience.
Those are some pretty delightful what the F moments there. All right, before we move on to Mandy, we want to take a second and say thank you to our awesome sponsors here at sexyhackers.com for this killer space. Super amazing. Make sure you go on their website, check them out, and check out some of our sweet t-shirts. Andrea, I've been trying to, again, read yours, but I
Yes.
can't read sideways.
Yes. Mine is Bigfoot. And it says, believe in yourself when no one else does.
Aww.
Yes.
Inspirational.
Yep.
So inspirational.
Yes. We should all aspire to be like Bigfoot.
Believe. Believe. I love it. All right. Mandy, I can imagine that you have some really special WTF moments about this book because they came deep from your childhood and as you've re-experienced them now. And I would love to dig into those.
Okay. So Andrea and I had a conversation about how we kind of share a WTF moment. Andrea, I am gifting you a Borscht snowball. And I am... and, you know... I thought about it, and I just went with the clearest memory of like the first time I read it, which like sticks with me, and that's the ending.
It is. It's
the
rough.
ending was my WTF moment because there's just great little flickers of hope throughout this book where she's like, I'm not letting any man stand in my way. I'm busting out. I'm going to do this. And
She learns to tell time.
She learns, she like gets an education. And it's so heartbreaking after like everything she went through. Like her husband boning his mistress in her hospice room stands out pretty starkly. And it's like there's nothing left for her in this house. And she's all set to leave. She's got her dad's, what did she take? It's a really nice car.
Oh, yeah, because he's got, like, fancy cars from all his stock market fraud.
He has, oh, this is just a preview for, like, shitty white fern. The Mercedes.
The
Like,
Mercedes.
she just goes up to her dad and she's
Get that
like,
Benz.
I'm getting the fuck out of here. Give me your Mercedes. Goodbye. And he's like, fine, just go. There's nothing. And she's like, okay, I don't care. And she can't get Sylvia to come with her. We're just drug the
Which
bitch.
doesn't make any sense because Sylvia followed her entire life and wouldn't go more than 3 feet away from her. So why suddenly won't she go? That is a mystery also.
Mm-hmm. And
How old is Sylvia?
I have a
at this
headcanon
point?
about
Like
Sylvia.
7?
No, she's 10 when she saves her.
Yeah.
So 10 or 11.
10 or 11.
You can pick up a 10-year-old. You can throw him in a car.
Just,
Not a
yeah.
problem.
It's fine. And so like Sylvia won't go. She's like, okay, well, fine. I'll leave Sylvia. And I'm like, okay, you really have to look out for you. And then she's like, oh, I have this premonition. Something terrible is going to happen to Papa. And whether
Who
it be,
cares?
like he falls down the stairs or like maybe like the feds,
Like you do.
maybe the feds catch up to him because
that's
like
right.
that he's been like ripping off old ladies
Yeah.
and like making his money off of the backs of like these women who like trust him with their money and their
That was the
investments.
boring part of the book was them
Yeah.
describing how
Yeah.
he like uses the stock market to fleece old ladies.
Money, numbers, stocks.
Yeah.
And then they try to frame her decision as like, oh, I'm finally the first and best Audrina. This is how I get her gifts is like ultimately like putting myself aside and going back. And like that was my what moment because I threw the book.
Yeah.
As like
I
as
threw the book.
middle
It's a
schooler.
football, like, spike the book moment of, like,
For sure.
why?
I was heartbroken and disappointed, and I sometimes like I wonder, did she want it to be uplifting or did she want it to be
Maybe
like
because
a
Lacey
depressing
Andrews
ending?
never got to get out of her situation either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're
She
stuck.
wouldn't even know where to
I
go with that.
She was trying to frame it as empowering because she was trying to feel better about her situation.
Yeah, but it's just she could have gotten a
For those of us who can walk
She could have like
out of our
become a
house or
therapist.
wheel
She could have
now.
become an advocate for disability rights.
Yes.
Like a
Right?
trailblazer
Exactly.
with Sylvia. Instead she like stays like to like protect this man who like took her trauma and messed with her in like these indescribable ways because the way she was dealing with her trauma initially made him and others feel uncomfortable.
It was a different time.
Yeah, it's not great.
So yeah, that's
a big
heavy
WTF.
one. Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. Andrea, you have a list of WTFs that I am really excited for.
Yeah.
All right, fire away.
So thank you, Mandy, for softballing one to me. I appreciate it. I think for me, as I have discussed with a few people going into this, I feel like I went into a fugue state reading this book because it's so like cyclical in its traumatic experiences for the characters. As we counted off, there's 4 victims of the stairs. Like every female character experiences some sort of sexual trauma. There's gaslighting, there's brainwashing, there's so much voyeurism. VC, you okay? There's just a lot to unpack. And I think the thing that broke out of the sort of repetitive nature of all of the traumas to me was the miscarriage scene. Because, like in a book full of terrible, terrible people, Vera is also terrible and pretty unforgivable for her role in what happens. But also she is sort of the lens of the audience of she's like sort of trying to help in her weird way of toxicity and awfulness.
I mean, she's the only one that will really tell her anything.
Yeah, and so you kind of like latch onto her as this bastion of like, this is the only person who realizes how buck wild everybody else is. And so
Although Elspeth a little bit does that
Elspeth
too.
does have her moments.
Before she gets thrown down the stairs.
Yeah, as you do. But Vera miscarrying and just like the description of her after that happens, they have an argument and she's like on the floor, like writhing in her blood, and then picks up a clump of it and throws it at her mother. And the description of it like plopping against her mother's apron. And then her mom is just like, clean the carpet. This is gross. Takes off her apron and bakes a pie. Because this is the most well-adjusted family of all time.
Can I pause? Because I have the passage.
Yes.
Because it's not just
Yes.
the whole taking off the
Yes.
apron. This cold-ass bitch.
Yes.
Listen. Mother, cried Vera, looking weak now and ready to faint. I've just miscarried. And you worry about the rug? The Oriental is valuable.
Like, that is cold-blooded. And so that...
Also, I believe we find out later that nothing in that house is valuable. It's all like...
yeah, it's all fake. Like, it's
fake or like poorly cared for garbage.
Yeah. So that was, I feel like, to me, in the sort of, again, just like blur of shenanigans and nonsense and insanity of this book, that to me, like, kind of was a gut punch of like, wow, okay, cool. This is where we're at now. And then we just dive right back into all of the other shenanigans. So it was a break in the monotony of complete and total bonkers plot developments.
And very much treated like, oh, by the way, here's this like super bonkers traumatic thing.
And then they move on in like a page.
Exactly.
It's just done.
Like,
never mentioned again. They don't know. They never reveal who the child is. It's maybe Arden's. It's maybe Lamar's. Maybe it's Damien's
she would have
personal
any
headcanon.
Okay,
Or
I
that Vera
share
would
your
have any personal
headcanon.
trauma after that? Like,
Yeah.
be affected
Right.
in any... Well,
No.
I guess she's affected.
Chigurl has some stuff to deal with.
Solid one.
Oh, did we, during the plot recap, I don't know if we ever made explicit to the listeners, Vera is Damien's child.
Oh, yeah.
yes. Yes.
Damien boned Vera's mom and then broke up with her, or like left her,
For her
after she got
prettier-
pregnant, left her for her like prettier sister.
Who was a virgin.
who was a virgin, because that's very important to Damien. He's purity.
Yeah, there's a lot of like
But that
purity
makes for the worst
politics
sex.
and it's real gross.
Yeah, there was a conversation during the tea time where like they actually aren't, when they're like take time from like tearing each other apart, and they talk about how Lucky had a brief flirtation, depending on how you look at it, flirtation or the man was grooming her, with her piano teacher. And
Piano teachers.
Never trust a piano teacher.
Oh. And Lucky is like, no, we never had sex. And Elsbeth's like, yeah, because and she's like, but I wish we had. And she's like, and Elsbeth's like, no, Damien would not have had you if you had not gone into that marriage a virgin.
Yeah.
Which makes his thing with Billy kind of questionable, but you do you, I guess.
Standards change over the years.
I suppose. He's become more open.
Well, and I think it becomes more important to him to have someone taking care of him.
This is true.
Like
Because for a while, like Audrina gets plugged into that role.
Yeah,
and then, like, for
which
a
is
while,
creepy,
Vera,
too.
Like it's all bad, you guys. It's gross. It's real gross.
And that's why her staying is like so infuriating, because like she's gonna be stuck in that role, like, and she's gonna be stuck in that role until Sophia is old enough. Sylvia, whatever the crap her name is, until Sylvia is old enough to do it.
Yeah.
Well, Sylvia will never do it. She can't even speak.
I have a headcanon about that too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There are the little like moments. Yeah. There are
It's
the
more
moments
than a
where it's-
headcanon. I think that is what your headcanon is probably canon, but we'll go into that when,
Conspiracy theories?
Next
episode.
Totally. Next episode, conspiracy theories.
But like, long story short, I mean, in terms of her staying, it is. I mean, I think from VC Andrews' place she was coming from, it's not great. In reality, I mean, it does 100% make sense that her entire experience for her life has been being gaslit and brainwashed and abused, and same thing with her mom and her aunt and like literally everyone she's ever met. So like, it's one of those heartbreaking realities where it does 100% make sense, and you do not want it to, because it sucks.
Yeah.
But like, it's all she knows, and also her weird psychic bond with Sylvia. There's a lot of hand wavy stuff and a lot of very sad, depressing things to consider about the implications. But whatever.
Very nice. Awesome. I know there were a few more WTF moments that we had discussed earlier. Does anyone want to, you guys are all so considerate. Everyone's like, I'm going to do one and then move on nicely and take our turn. This is so refreshing in this podcast. No one talks over each other. It's
because we're all women.
guys. Yeah. So let's continue on. We've
I
got a few
mean,
minutes
that
left.
stood out to me the most was that tea party. I just couldn't.
It's a
with
trip.
the tea party.
It is a trip.
I wanted more tea party.
I wanted more tea party. I mean, to be clear, they're sitting in a parlor. The two women who live there
Just
are
getting
dressed
super shit house drunk.
Dressed up. They have their tea. They bring out the photo of the aunt. They talk about how the aunt, we don't know how she died, who she is, but
She disappeared. She was a missionary.
She joins them, and you're like, okay, this is weird, but maybe they're just playing, honoring their aunt, and they're having this polite conversation. They pour a little booze in their tea. Who's not guilty of that? And Audrina drinks whatever, and they just talk, and then all of a sudden they start using a fake voice to speak for the picture. And insulting each other, just like, remember when you did this? Remember when you did that? And you're a whore, and da-da-da. And I'm like, what the is
Maybe
going
your
on
husband
right
would
now?
love you more if
you, yes. And that stood out to me almost more than anything. I wanted more tea party, and then they don't let Vera ever come, but she sneaks out of school and hides to watch these tea parties, which is like, she's such an evil cunt that like,
I love her.
somewhere, right?
I hate her and I love her.
And it just, like I said, I'd really like to just have that option with some people so that we could just get all our shit out.
It's definitely in a book full of deeply, deeply flawed and traumatic coping mechanisms. It's somehow the least weird.
When you really put it that way, yeah, okay, we're getting our shit out without like making a scene, I suppose.
Also, I do want to know more about Aunt Mercy
Marie.
Marie.
Aunt Mercy Marie. Like, I want to know more about this lady because they're
you
like,
picture her looking like.
There's a slightly problematic description of her being a bigger woman.
Yes.
Which is a whole plot point, which thanks, VC. Great.
I actually
Thanks for the
love
body
that.
issues.
I love that she's like an awesome fat bitch.
Oh,
like,
I love it.
that.
But the weird,
But that's like
they're not great about it,
Oh, yeah, they're
shockingly,
shitty about
because
it.
they're
About
great
the
about literally
racism?
anything. I mean, there's the racism, there's the fat phobia, there's all of the isms and phobias and everything possible.
Because like she's a bigger woman, and Elizabeth and Lucky are like, oh, she's dead. She got eaten by cannibals.
Oh, yep.
And there's
Why
that.
was she traveling to where there were cannibals? Is she like a world traveler?
She was
and
a
then you're like,
missionary.
yeah, bitch.
She's a missionary.
I don't think cannibals are like a thing that anyone needs to worry about unless they're like
But then Damien's
Fiji.
like,
veiling racism with it.
and then Damien's like, no, she didn't die. Hold my hood. Chief, she was married to a chief because
like
the
them
people
that way.
in the jungle like fat bitches.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all a lot.
Yeah,
to
there's
digest.
like a lot of
But is she a real person at all?
Oh, she's real.
You think so?
I mean, there's a picture of her, so that's she existed at some point, but is she really?
Listen, Michelle, let us have Mercy Marie. She's a
love
bastion
Mercy
of hope
Marie.
in the sea of garbage of this book.
right? And she was like, "Bye, everybody. I'm gonna go do something."
Yeah.
Even if that something was missionary work,
she's
which
the woman
is a
of
whole other
empowerment in
conversation.
this story.
She is. She is the only. She's
She's the only one who tells it like it is and left.
she's the beacon of empowerment.
I imagine a glamour shot of Ursula from Little Mermaid.
See, I was actually picturing like Large Marge
Oh.
from
Why
Pee-wee's
not
Big
both?
Adventure.
I pictured like
Like the picture of Large Marge where she's wearing like the hat with like feathers on it and
Yes.
like a big furry coat.
yes, I kind
Because
of
she looks real glam in the like picture.
yeah.
All right. I'm going to say that is one theory that we're going to debate next time on Who Let Me Read This. Thank you so much to all of our guests today. Thank you so much to sexyhackers.com for this awesome space and letting us spend our Saturdays debating Large Marge portraits. Super excited to dive into our conspiracy theories and headcanons on My Sweet Audrina next week. We will see you all then. Thank you so much. Bye.
sexyhackers.com Stream Team.